Hey y'all, it's Amanda, and it's time for our paint lesson. We're going to paint some impressionistic roses tonight. So this is the little sample that I did earlier today, and you may be able to see it better here. And it's super easy to do. I don't want you to be afraid of this. We're going to do this with a palette knife, and we're going to use just some primary colors and a little bit of white, and I'm going to show you how to create this little bouquet of 3. And I usually do things in sets that are odd, so 3s or 5s or 7s. When you're doing a floral arrangement, that usually looks the best. So that's what we're going to go for. We've got 3 flowers here, and I've got a few little spots that could be a bud if it wanted to be. So you guys let me know that you're here. Say hi. And hi Kathy and Rhonda, I'm glad you're here. So what we're going to do is go ahead and just get started with putting down a layer of paint on a white canvas. And I'm going to use some burnt umber. And I didn't get that out. Hang on just a second. What did I do with it? Here it is. So I do this a lot with, especially with my oil paintings. I just put down a little bit of a wash of a color. Usually it's going to be something, if it's something that I'm going to paint that's going to have a lot of cool tones in it, which would be blues and greens, then I might put down a warm wash first, and vice versa. Let me put this back here. Well, I'm going to set it right here so I can use it as a reference as I go. All right, let's see who's here. Hi, Stephanie and Donna and Vanessa and Cheryl. Okay, lots of you are here. I'm glad. Tina and Whitney. Okay, let me grab a paper towel. So I'm going to show you how to do a really thin wash of brown first. And you just need to get a brush that is a little bit wet. Doesn't have to be, you know, like really wet, just a little bit. And use some of your brown paint. I'm going to get a little wetter than that. And make a really thin layer of brown all over. So I'm just going to really slop it on here to begin with. And I'm going to take my paper towel and make it all spread out a little more evenly. So you want to use a little bit of water and a little bit of paint. And I'm using a canvas board. It's not a stretched canvas, it's a board, but hi Patty. It's canvas either way. Okay, so now I've just got this down. I'm just going to take my paper towel and spread it out. And this also dries it a little bit and helps you to just get going real quickly. And I don't always do this, but I have found recently that it makes my paintings richer when I have something in the background before I get started. And it's not just that stark white canvas that I start with. Okay, throw that away. Hi Karen, hi Kathy. I'm glad you all are here. All right, we are going to use some red, green, yellow, blue, and white. And you don't have to use a certain color. I'm going to be using, these are my favorite kinds of paints. The acrylic paints that are thicker and are in the tube like this. They are my favorite. But you can use whatever you have on hand. If it's acrylic paint, it will work. It may be a little bit harder if your paint is really thin, but you can still do it. And your red is going to, depending on what hue you have, this is going to be cadmium red. Your pink may differ a little bit from mine. So whether you're using, like if you were using an alizarin crimson, which is a more, let me grab it right here. It's a more, that's not alizarin. Where'd it go? Well, I know I have it. It's a purpley red anyway. So it will give you a little bit more of a, it's a deeper, more purple red, where the cadmium red is a little more on the orangey side. So it doesn't really matter what kind of red you have. I'm just telling you, if you paint with something that doesn't look exactly like what I'm doing, it may be because the shade or the hue that you're using is a little bit different. All paints either lean toward the warm or the cool side. Even if it is a warm color like red, it can still be a little purpley red or a little orangey red. So just need to keep that in mind. All right, first thing we're going to do is take our small brush, and I'm going to take this brown that we were using to make our wash, and I'm just going to, first I've got to turn my canvas the right way. Just going to map out where our flowers are going to live. So we'll have one right here. And when you're painting roses, you need to keep in mind that there is a swirl, okay? Especially right here in the middle. If you can keep this middle swirl alive, then you're going to be good. Okay, so our bigger one is going to live right in here. And you can go ahead and just put in some of these layers that we're going to end up doing with our knife when you're kind of mapping it out. And then we'll have a smaller one about right here. And you guys, this is not going to look exactly like the first one that I did, because no two paintings that I do are ever exactly alike. Okay. Hi, Audrey. All right. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to start building the flower, and we're going to start with our darkest hue, and we're going to build up with our highlights and our lighter colors on top. So I'm going to show you how to mix just a little bit in this lesson too. So we don't want to just pick up straight red. What I want to do is I want to make this a little bit darker. So I'm going to take some of this red, and I'm going to put a tiny bit of blue in there. And so that's going to give me a deeper red. And I'm probably going to have to mix up a little bit more than this, but I'm just getting started. So we've got our really deep red that's going to be the center of our flower, and it's going to make all of these edges that look like you're looking down into the shadowy, darker part of the flower. So when you're thinking about this, you need to, when you're planning out a flower, especially a rose, you need to think about, you've really got three main levels. We'll call them levels. So you've got really dark, and then you've got a medium, and then you've got a really light. And then sometimes you may add in some cooler or warmer colors that are not the same as the actual flower, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, so we've mapped it out, and the next thing we're going to do is take this darker red, and we're going to put that in the center of all of them. You don't have to make your center right in the middle of your circle. You can make the center of this one up a little bit higher or down a little bit lower. That's totally up to you. Okay, then I'm going to take some of it, and if you notice, well, I've got blue on my knife. Hang on. If you notice, from here to here is where I have my red loaded on my knife. You don't want to put it all over the whole thing, because that's going to make it really hard to control it. But now we're going to take this deep red that we put in the middle, and we're going to start putting a few spots just around the flower. And this is completely loose, haphazard, if you want to call it that. Not something that is planned. So you're just putting down some of this darker red and skipping some spaces in between. Okay, we're going to mix up a little bit more. So we've got our red and a little bit of blue. We're going to do the same thing with this one. So you want to have some thick areas and some thin areas. And we'll do that over here also. Okay, so this is our darkest color that we're going to put. The next thing we'll do is add a little bit of white to this same dark red that we just made. And that's going to give us a medium pink color. So we may need to add a little bit more red. And that'll brighten it up a little bit. But this is our medium pink. Alright, so now we're just going to kind of fill in some of these spots where we don't have the deep red. So you're just swiping your knife around, filling in these little holes here. And you know, when roses are open, they sometimes have these petals that kind of stick out. So they may look something like that. So you could do a few of those if you wanted to, around the edges. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing with this one. Going to need to mix up a little more of this medium pink. And when you mix your own colors, it's so much fun because you can really make it however you want it to look. Okay. You could add a little bit of yellow to it if you wanted to and make it more of a peach rather than this pink that we've got. So I'm just filling in the holes, going around in a circle. And do the same thing over here. Making some thicker marks and some thinner marks. Okay, and then, well, Audrey just asked, am I painting on wood? No, I've got a canvas panel. It's not a stretched canvas, so yeah, it's got a little bit of a noise to it. Okay, so this next layer is going to be a very light pink. So we're going to pick up a lot of white and just mix it in with this medium pink that we had. Let me wipe my knife off because I've got it too far up. I don't want to load it too far back. I want to keep it loaded about there. Okay, now this part, we've kind of filled in most of the holes here. This part, we're going to pick the areas where we add our white. And or it's really a light pink, some of the best places to do that is going to be right beside the really dark pink. And that's going to give it a lot of depth and contrast. So we're still doing the same thing. We're going around, we're filling in some of these little holes that we've got. If you have any holes left that don't already have some paint on them, then you definitely want to put the light pink there. And then we may have to just kind of step back and look at it and see where else do we think we need some highlights? So first we'll go around and fill in what's missing. And especially in these little spots like this. Okay, and then we'll do the same here on this one. Then we're going to come back and be a little more intentional. You just don't want to think too much about what you're doing, because then you're going to start trying to make it look like a flower, and then you're going to overwork it. So a lot of times, most of my students have the most difficulty with loosening up. And it's usually because they're overthinking it. Okay, so let's do some of this light pink on this one. Okay, so now I'm going to stop and I'm going to look at it for just a minute. And Tina's asking me to slow down. I paint really fast, and one of the reasons why I paint really fast is because if you slow down too much and think about what you're doing too much, then you're going to overwork it. So you just kind of have to go really quickly, make sure that you're filling in any holes that you got there. So we started with the dark, then the medium, then the really light pink, and now I'm going to take a step back and look at it and see, okay, what do I need to really work on to make it look like there's a really dark center and that there are layers all around that dark center. So in the meantime, we're going to put in some green areas and some blue. And I chose blue for my background. It's a really light blue in this one here. My background is this really light blue because if you add these cool colors with these warm colors, it really makes it stand out and look really pretty. So let's do that next. I'm going to take some of this pink, white, and move it over here away from the pink. And then I'm going to take some of my blue and mix that up. Okay. Do you guys have questions so far? Other than Audrey asking about painting on wood, I don't see another question yet. But I don't mind answering. Hi, Lori. Okay, I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow. This is yellow ochre, and it's more of a brownish yellow. It's not really a bright sunny yellow, and that just kind of pulls down and dulls it out just a little bit because I don't want it to be too bright. All right, so hopefully Tina's able to catch up a little bit. Sherry says she's trying to keep up. I'm sorry, I'm a fast painter, but you can always watch the replay too. So this is it's going to remain on my Facebook page. So if you need to come back and watch it again, you can. Yes, Dorothy, you can replay it later. And Kathy says, what blue are you painting with? This is cerulean blue. And Darlene's asking how thick the paint is on here. I'll try to give you a view of the thickness. It's not really thick, but there's some texture there. Okay. All right, now we're going to go with the blue, and we're going to go around these, and it's going to look so much different once we get this blue background put in here. And you don't have to cover all of the brown. You may want to leave some of it kind of peeking out a little bit. And some of it's going to. There's no reason for it to completely be covered. Add a little more white. So while I'm doing this background, some of you who may be a little bit behind with the flowers, you take your time and you can catch up. So the background part, you could also do this with a brush if you would like to. Sometimes I do this with a brush, sometimes I do it with a knife. But I've found that you can do it kind of faster with a knife. But you're going to have to be okay with it being messy. Because that's just part of it. And when you're done, when you're doing it, it may look like it's way too messy, but oops, I got a little something in there. When you're done and you look back at it, all of the little spots where, like this, where a little bit of pink got on the blue, it actually turns out to be really pretty. It all works together. Claudine says, do you use a gloss or matte paint? This is the Artist Loft paint. It has a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's not really a gloss, I wouldn't say. And it's not really matte. It's more like a satin finish, I would think. But if you wanted a certain finish on your paint, if you're using several different brands, sometimes you'll find that some of them are a little bit glossier than others. But if you will, after you're finished with your painting, if you will use some sort of varnish, it will make it all work together and have the same finish. So let's say you painted something and it was a little bit glossy in one spot and a little bit more matte in the rest of the painting. If you use something like a satin varnish, then all of it would have that satiny eggshell-like finish when you're done. But if you're using all the same brand, usually the finish is the same in this certain brands. Patty says, using a palette knife makes me wonder if you ever took cake decorating classes. No, I'm definitely not a cake decorator. But it is a little bit like that. I've actually used that as an illustration before, that it's like spreading icing on a cupcake. Judy asked what type of knife I'm using. This one is my favorite knife, and everybody asks me this. This one came from Michael's. When I was there the other day in our local store, they did not have this knife, so I hope that they're not going to do away with it, but I have a spare, and it's just the Artist Loft brand, number 102, and it has this pointed tip on it. There are a few other ones, other brands that have this same kind of really sharp tip, and this is what makes it easier for me to paint with. So if you find something that looks similar to this, no matter what brand it is, this will be my recommendation. And Lori says, what type of wood am I using? I know it sounds like wood, but it's actually a canvas panel. So it's just canvas stretched on a panel. Okay. Hopefully you guys are able to catch up now. And we're going to add some green, and just very loosely, don't try to do this and make the shapes of leaves. Okay, I'm going to show you this one again. This was our original sample that we're working from. Do you see the green here. It's very, very messy, very loose, very abstract. So we don't want to try to take our knife and make something that looks, you know, like the shape of a leaf necessarily. We're just going to go for it. And I need some more white, so hang on just a second. Let's see. Judy says, what is this type of painting called? Well, it's acrylic paint. It's also, it could be called impasto, but it's not really that thick. Most of the time, that kind of work is really, really thick. But I would just call it palette knife painting or knife painting. And it's done in an impressionistic way. Okay. Kathy says, I'm really learning to love to paint with a palette knife. I find it's not so stressful. It's not stressful. I love doing it. You just kind of have to let go of expectations and what you think it's going to turn out to look like, because that's probably not what it's going to be, but it's going to be something amazing anyway. So, all right, see, I'm just going around the edge. I'm just really kind of framing out my flowers with some darker green here. And you can put some up at the top. And I'm making really fast, short swipes. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up some green that's got some white in there. There's a little bit of pink in that one too. But that's okay. Okay, and now I'm going to take my knife and a little bit of this pink that we did with the flowers, and I'm just going to make something that looks like it could be a flower bud. And all I'm doing is just pulling a really quick swipe. Okay? Alright, now we're going to go back to our roses. Let's see. Linda says her Michaels had the palette knives yesterday. Great. And you can order them online. These are definitely my favorite. Thank you, Judy. And Judy Fan says, is this a new method of painting? No, I don't think it's a new method, but I do think that it's more popular now than it has been before. I know there are several artists that use knives, but the impressionistic look has been around for a really long time. So artists like Monet, let me think. You put me on the spot. Claudine says, looks very shabby chic. Yes, that's my thing. I really like that. Van Gogh, different artists like that who used, especially Van Gogh, he used a lot of really thick swipes of paint. So he may have used a brush to do that. I'm not 100% sure if he used a knife sometimes or not, but this idea of impressionistic, thicker swipes of paint is not really new. Okay, so next we're going to work on our flowers a little bit more. And like I said, we're going to find spots and be a little more intentional where we put our highlights now. So I'm going to take some just bright white, and I'm going to go in and look for spots that have the really dark areas. And I'm going to put some of this bright white kind of beside it. I mean, it doesn't have to be done perfectly by any means. It shouldn't be. but just putting a little bit of that white beside the spots where you've got some really dark areas will make it stand out even more. And remember, we're still doing this swirl here. So we've got this swirl going around. And I'm going to darken this area a little bit more, or make it a little bit wider, because I feel like I've got it a little too covered up now with some of this white. So I'll do that. Okay, and then I'm going to take my white and do the same thing here. Just put it in a few little spots, because the white is what is coming forward. So if you imagine it being like the edges of the flower petals that are sticking up. Alright, and then we'll do a little bit on this one also. You don't have to overdo it. Let's put a little more right in there. Just using the very tip of my knife. Okay. Thanks, Judy. Now I'm going to use a little bit of yellow. Okay. This is yellow ochre, and it's almost a golden yellow. Add a little bit of white to it though. And this is gonna just kind of warm it up in a few spots. I'm not gonna overdo it. I'm just gonna put a little bit in a few areas. Mostly in the areas where there is the medium pink. Okay, and the same on this one. Not too much, just a little bit. And then this one, a little bit there. And then, like our example that we had here, I've also got a little bit of blue in there. So adding a little bit of a cool color in with all these warm reds and pinks and yellows will just highlight it and make it look, it's going to make the warm colors really stand out. So just take a little, not a lot, just a little bit of blue, and that can be done sort of beside some of these white spots. And you don't want to overdo this for sure, but it just adds a little bit more character. I don't know. Okay, I think I got a little bit too much blue right here, so it's no problem. We'll just take some white and some of our red. We can cover it up a little bit. I don't want to cover up all of it, but I think I did get a little too much. Okay. So usually this is where I have to stand back and look at it again. And right here, I think it needs more pink than white. But I'm going to try really hard not to overwork it, because that is very easy to do. And I feel like I need a little something over here. Just to kind of round it out a little bit more. And my green is really light in a lot of spots. I think it needs, especially next to the edge of my flowers, that green needs to be pretty dark. Or at least that's my opinion. Okay, so let's take a look. There's a little bit of a difference in this one and this one as far as the deeper colors also. So this one is, I used the same paint, but when I did my background, when I did that light wash on this one, I used a lighter brown and I used my paper towel. But on this one I had a darker brown and I didn't use more, I used more of a solid color rather than a wash. So all these darker spots like this are coming through, and that's not happening here. So I've got a lighter and a softer look in this one, in the background especially, because I used a darker brown on my background before I started painting. My wash was much darker in this one. And that's going to make a difference when you're painting yours. So if you wanted to, you could have like a hot pink wash, and then when you put down this blue background and all these little parts peek through, like this brown is peeking through right here, it's going to be hot pink, or it could be bright yellow, or it could be, you know, bright green or whatever. So your wash can actually change the look of your painting. But for this one, it turned out a little bit softer, but I like it. So do you guys have any questions for me about painting these impressionistic roses? Audrey says, so far I actually like this one better than your sample painting. It looks softer. It does look softer, and it's because of that background brown that I did. This really light brown compared to the darker one. Thanks, Peggy and Kathy and Susie. Kathy, there's a lot of Kathys, says, to paint white roses, what colors would you recommend to start with? Well, it kind of depends on whether you want them to be a cooler white or a warm white. So you could start with a brown and then build up with lighter colors until you get a white. So where we had red here, you could do that with brown. And that would be like a warm rose. Or you could do it with a purple or a blue, and that would turn into something that's cooler. You may not want to have like a dark blue center, but if you had a little bit of a tint of blue in your darkest color, then it would give you a cooler white. Let's see. Sherry says she likes the darker edges in the first one. So what you would need to do if you want to go with a darker look is put down a really dark background. Claudine says, what are your must-have basic colors? Probably the ones that we used tonight. I would say, let me get them out here. Sap green, cerulean blue, yellow ochre, I got paint on my hand, this cadmium red, and burnt umber. I use burnt umber a lot, and then definitely have some white. You can mix black by, just combining all these together. You can mix green using yellow and blue, and you can mix purple using the red and the blue. So browns are kind of harder to mix, but if you've got these colors, then I would say that's definitely a good basic beginner's kit. And sometimes you can get a little box that has kind of these same colors in there as a starter kit. Julie says, can we show you ours for critique? Sure. Let's see. Patty says, what would be the paint colors you would recommend for yellow roses? I would use brown, white, and yellow. And I would do it the same way we just did these, but have the brown as the darkest color, a yellow as a medium, and then use some white for your highlights. Mixing a little bit of yellow in with the brown, a little bit of yellow in with the white. Vanessa says, I think you're saying peach roses. Could you do those with all the peaches and yellows? Yes, you could definitely do this. Just add a little bit of yellow to the red in the very beginning. Tina says, I think my paints are too thin. It's possible if you're using craft paint or if you're using something like this, then it's going to be harder to get it to stick to your knife. So what I always recommend is if you have a lot of craft paint on hand and you're not ready to purchase the thicker paints yet, you can use this matte gel medium and you mix it with your craft paint and it thickens it up so that you can use your knife and it will hold its shape a lot better than just the craft paint alone. Thank you, Janet. And Rebecca says, I'll have to watch the replay to watch this all. Yes, you can watch the replay. It will be here on my Facebook page for you. So, let's see. Do you have any other questions? Cheryl says it would look good in her sunroom. It would be pretty in a frame. That's one reason why I like these little boards so much. They're really easy to frame. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. And here was our beginning sample. And here's what we created tonight. And I would love to see yours. If you want to share a picture of what you painted in the comments, and I'll be happy to help you if you have questions or just cheer you on so you can just keep going and continue to paint. Sherry says, what number painting is this of your 100? That's a good question. I think I'm on 36. I'm not too far along. I've got a lot to go to get to 100. Judy says, what is this type of painting called? Impressionistic, or you could call it palette knife painting. If you're wanting to look things up, like online, if you type in palette knife painting, then usually this kind of work is what pops up. Thanks, Karen. Yes, Cindy, it will be available to watch later. I'll have it saved here. I don't know if you know this or not, but all of my previous live videos are still here on my Facebook page. You can go back and watch the replays anytime. All right, I'm going to go for now. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something and you're excited about trying to paint with a palette knife. It's my favorite way to paint. And I just want to encourage you to give it a try if you've never tried it before. I will see you guys next time. Bye.